Hi, happy Halloween. Look at my dangly skeletal earrings. I love them so much. This is they're so cool. I love finding stuff like this and then getting to wear it. I am just obsessed. They're so cute. Welcome to this reading wrap up for the month of October. I read 8 books this month, which is my personal best. Not to say that this is the first time that I've read 8 books, but it is still a huge number to hit in a month. Part of me kind of wanted to find a graphic novel and just read it today because I can finish a graphic novel from like 30 minutes to a couple of hours, depending on the length of the graphic novel. But I didn't really want to cheat to set a new personal best. So here we are, still at 8 books in a month being my personal best, but it is really, really cool and I am really happy. Either way, I'm just really glad that I got all this reading done. And it was a good reading month, both quantitatively with like 8 books, but also qualitatively because I read like well rated books, or the books that I read, actually, I rated them highly, and that is always cool. So I'll just go through these books in the sequence that I read them in, and let's chat. Okay, so the first book that I read this month was A Tempest of Tea. I actually read this whole duology. I don't have a copy of The Steeping of Blood with me at the moment. So, this is a duology which is set in this fictional world where vampires exist, and this the main character of this book, Aarti Casimir, she runs a tea house which serves humans by day, and they have all the best and most amazing teas. But by night time, their tea room transforms into a blood house where vampire patrons can come in and get blood in various flavors and in various ways, and without the necessity of any violence. So it's really cool even from the get-go. But then the way that I would describe Aarti would be like a female Indian caste breaker, or like a female Desi South Asian caste breaker. I read this book and I think I fell in love with her a little bit. Also, there's this little thing of Aarti being short for Arthur, or like a female version of Arthur, and she pulls a gun out of a stone instead of a sword, and I think that's also pretty cool and adds to her lore. She colors her hair, I color my hair. I am just obsessed with Aarti. And this was a really cool book. However, the second book, A Steeping of Blood, which I'm going to put right here, A Steeping of Blood had certain choices that were made that I did not like. Certain acts of violence were committed, against certain characters that I do not agree with, because to me they did not further the plot. They did not add anything except for like a shock factor. I did not like that. It was totally unnecessary, or maybe I've just been reading too many cozy stories lately and I just want everything to have a nice cozy happy ending. But even then, like, there were certain characters that I wouldn't have cared had those things happened to. But yeah, so I had some differences. Also, there were like certain aspects that were uncovered or introduced in this second book, which I feel like should have been explored further and a lot more depth. Sorry. Um, so I don't know if the author is planning a sequel or a spin-off of sorts, but to me there were certain threads that were left unexplored and certain things that were left not addressed. But I still highly enjoyed the book. It was, for the most part, a good and sufficient conclusion. And if you've read and enjoyed the first book, I would definitely say that you should check out the second book. And fingers crossed for a spin off or a sequel that further explores all these points that were not addressed. I understand that sometimes writers do that. They leave certain plot points open for possibility of a sequel, or if there's already a sequel in the works and we just don't know about it. So that was the Tempest of Tea, the Blood and Tea duology. Next. Next up, I read Book Lovers by Emily Henry. Now, I had been craving a good romance book for a really long time. Before this, I've only read two other books by Emily Henry, but to me, she has not missed yet. She doesn't miss as far as I know. So I really wanted a nice little romance book, and that is what this was. I really enjoy the fact that Emily Henry books have fleshed out characters, their motivations make sense, who they are, their characterizations make sense, and the romance itself is never like an insta love or something that just happened trying to force romance or chemistry or the spark when there is none. No, her stories make sense. She to me is like if lit fic was romance, if that makes sense. Either way, I really wanted to read something like this. I think I gave this 5 stars as well. I really, really, really enjoyed Book Lovers. And maybe I related a little bit to the main character, but who doesn't? I mean, I guess people who are not eldest daughters or parentified children don't, but I did. Anyway, uh, yeah, so I really, really loved this book. Oh, wait, let me tell you a little bit about the book. So, in Book Lovers, our main character, Nora, she's a literary agent. So, I don't know if you're familiar with the process of publishing, but what happens is usually writers write a book, then they take it to a literary agent who then pitches it to the publishing houses. There are some publishing houses that can accept manuscripts directly from writers, but for the most part, as far as I am aware, and especially like the big five, the big four, I think now, they don't. So, anyway, a literary agent is somebody who takes books that writers write and then gets them a publishing deal with the publishing house. And the love interest, Charlie, is an editor, and I think you can kind of understand an editor is someone who edits books. I recently actually did a course about the publishing industry, and I found out that there are multiple types of editors. So Charlie is like a developmental editor. He works with writers very closely to like find the voice of the characters, to improve the storytelling style, to see if they can move certain like events in the book in order to make it make more sense or for it to be more impactful. He helps develop the story, which is why developmental editor. This is not mentioned in the book. This is just I did a course and I found it out and I'm really excited to talk about it. Thing. So at some point, Nora and Charlie met. They discussed a client and they got off on the wrong foot, and they've despised each other ever since, or at least Nora has despised him and thinks that he despises her. Whether or not that is true is for like you, the reader, to figure it out. But Nora's sister wants them to go to a small town for a month on a getaway, and they do. And who does she run into there? But her work rival. So it's like a cute little slight forced proximity, slight rivals to lovers kind of story, but it's also a story about people, and that is the thing that I love the most about Emily Henry books, that these characters feel fleshed out, they feel like people, and I am a sucker for it every single time. So that was Book Lovers. Okay. Can you tell that I've had a good reading month by how eager and like how into this wrap up I am? Next, Wishes by V.E. Schwab. The next book that I read was Wishes by V.E. Schwab. So now Wishes is about two college best friends who first figure out how to become extraordinaries, which is basically like they figure out how to get superpowers. And then also something happens, they have a falling out, one of them goes to prison, and then a decade later he gets out of prison, hell-bent on revenge. And his friend isn't that fond of him anymore either. So they both want to kill each other. They've both got people helping them. They've both got some bodies buried in the closet, or maybe like right behind them, and they're just about to clean up the scene. It's insane, it's unhinged, it's honestly a little bit queer coded because I'm pretty sure that this was not just a rivalry that sprouted out of like jealousy and hate. I'm pretty sure there was like a crush involved. But that's for you to figure out when you read it. But it's really cool. The EOs that are in the book have some really cool superpowers. There's this 12-year-old girl in this book whom I adore. There's a dog. There's a. Okay, I don't want to give you any more spoilers. But this is a very specific kind of fantasy where it's like kind of urban fantasy, I would say, which I found out as a genre recently, where it is set in all these cities, which could be your city or my city or any city, really. But we've got all this superpowered shit going down, and I loved it. I devoured this book, and I'm trying to read the sequel as well, and I'm saying and a lot. But my point is, I really enjoyed Wishes too. I don't know if I gave it 4 or 5 stars, but it was somewhere in there. We should at some point discuss my rating system because it's a vibes only rating system. Just throwing that out there. But I loved it. And if you're looking for like jilted lover vibes from your friendship breakup, we've all had that one friend with whom we were kind of in love, and then something happens and you have a falling out, and then you're like left there questioning yourself, questioning your feelings, questioning your identity and every single thing, and all those feelings have nowhere to go, so they just turn into hatred. That with superpowers. If that's your vibe, I think you're really gonna love Wishes. Then the next book that I picked up was Lallan Sweets. I really wanted to read this book around Diwali because I wanted something comforting in my reading, something that felt like home. And oh my god, can you see my nails? Okay, it's been 10 days. It's been over 10 days since Diwali, but my nails have not. Okay, they've started to chip, but they're not so far gone that you can't, that I need to take them off. I'm obsessed with this nail paint. It literally stays on. Like I did this yesterday from OPI, and it's already starting to chip. But this is Swiss Beauty, and it's been on my nails for 10 days straight. I did this to match my sari because it had these two colors exactly, and it had like beautiful geometric patterns and these elephants on it. And yeah. So I did those nails. I applied mehendi, which has faded since then. Can you see it? You can't see it. But I also picked up Lallan Sweets for this Diwali season. This book has a very specific narrative voice that I wasn't used to, like the way that it is narrated. It was a little bit different from the books that I usually read, but once I got used to it, I could breeze through the book pretty easily. So that's the first thing. Secondly, okay, so let me tell you a little bit about Lallan Sweets. So Lallan Sweets is about this sweet shop that is owned by Lalaji, who is our main character's grandfather. He came to this small fictional town of Siaka after the partition, after being displaced from Pakistan. So this book has that like heritage, those stories also interwoven, and we meet some characters who were there with Lalaji when he was a boy, who have those similar stories, those similar histories, a shared history with him. He started Lallan Sweets, and there's always been this one specific thing about his laddus, that they have a special ingredient which makes it taste way better than any other sweets anywhere. in Siaka at least. So he decides that since he's growing old, he's not just gonna give his sweet shop to the next person. One of his three grandchildren must earn the sweet shop. So we've got Tara, our main character, and her cousins, Mohit and Rohit. Mohit and Rohit are siblings. They are her uncle's sons. And Tara's father passed away when she was quite young, but they have, as joint families do in India, all been living together, all been taking care of Lallan Sweets together, some more than others. They've been adjusting together. All of those aspects are interwoven in the story, which anyone who's been raised in a joint family will be able to understand and connect to. Then we have another person, Nikhil Sabarwal, who was the neighbor. He comes back to Siaka and then joins Tara as she races opposite Rohit and Mohit to go on a quest across multiple cities to like try to figure out what the secret ingredient. It's sort of like a treasure hunt, come challenge, come whatever else. And that is what this book is about. It's about it's about finding yourself, it's about India, it's about it. There are so many like Bollywood soundtracks that are mentioned throughout the movie that are playing in various scenes and various backgrounds. It's about going on an adventure, it's about finding yourself, it's about being true to your values, it's about family, it's about, so there are so many scenes where they stay with people and looking at like the lifestyles that we lead today are so different from the ones that even our parents led, because Tara is from my mom's generation. The book is set in a time where she does a lot of things that my mom used to do, and I'm just thinking on it and I was just reflecting on it, especially because I was reading it during Diwali and I was thinking about how we are getting farther and farther away from human connection, from the thing that we used to people used to come and stay at people's houses, like with relatives and all we still do, but not your distant relatives. Not, you can't just call up someone and say ki, hey, my friend is going to come to the city and he needs a place to stay, please just adjust, and your friend would be really happy to go and live with your family or relative or distant relative or friend of a friend of a friend's sons, neighbors, blah blah blah, and neither are you comfortable anymore. And I understand that imposition is one thing, but that thing of that Atithi Devo Bhava, the guest culture that we used to have, is really declining because we are all living in a capitalist society. Like, this has been my experience, that you're constantly so overwhelmed by overworking yourself that you simply do not have the emotional capacity to. We're like barely able to regulate ourselves. We're like barely able to do our daily chores and things that we need to do and clean the house or keep it a certain way or like go to the gym or have a skincare routine and a social life and everything else. And then on top of that, if someone announces that, hey, I'm sending this stranger to come live with you for 2 weeks, obviously I understand that in that overwhelm you lose your mind, but that is the thing, right? There is no time left, there's no space, there's no capacity left for human connection, and it really upsets me and it makes me so mad. And I'm still like trying to find that balance and trying to find a way out of that, to be open to connection, to be meeting people instead of being this grumpy person who's like, hey, I'm barely surviving, how dare you come and take my time. So if you found a way to cross that bridge and to find that balance, just let me know. And I know that I went a little bit off track, but this book touched upon a lot of things and it was really comforting to read. And I've heard people describe it as a Bollywood movie, and I wouldn't say exactly, because I feel like emotionally it takes you on a very interesting journey. But yeah, if I had to pitch it, even I would say that this is similar to reading a Bollywood movie. And it made me think, like, you just heard my entire rant in one direction. It made me think, and it gave me comfort. Like, people are wearing kurta pajamas. Apparently there's Siaka has a very specific style of kurta and pants that they wear, and she's wearing jhumki, and they're dropping jhumkis in Bareli ke bazaars, and all these colloquial things that everyone who grew up in India will be able to connect with instantly. And they're talking about Shah Rukh Khan and trying to figure out where his career is going. And it was a really sweet, cozy book, and I'm really, really happy that I chose Diwali to read it. I'm really proud of myself. Good choice. The next book that I read was The Nature of Witches by Rachel Griffin. And I've probably shown you this in a reel or a YouTube short before, but I just need to do this. So just bear with me. Look at this! Isn't it gorgeous? Gorgeous. I know we're not supposed to judge books by their covers, but don't we all? Don't we all? Like literally also, and as the metaphor suggests, we do that, which is a whole another tangent. And I think this video is already long enough with my deep dives into every single book that I've read. But I read The Nature of Witches. Okay, there are some tangents that I need to go off of about this book. So this book is like sort of a commentary on climate change and the disasters that we have created, the natural disasters. We have in this book, we have witches who are related to or linked to seasons, and every single witch has her own season, and that is where they're strongest. And they deal with the natural tragedies, the climate thingies, phenomena, the natural phenomena that occur in each season. So I loved the way that they divided the witches from like equinox to solstice to equinox to solstice. We divided the year up into four sections of 3 months each, and every single season, every single section is a season, is for each witch. So we've got spring, summer, fall or autumn witches, and winter witches. And our main character Clara, she's an ever witch. So she actually has the powers of all the seasons. And once the season changes, so does her power. So in the summer, she's a summer witch. She has all the powers and the capabilities and the strengths of a summer witch. And then as soon as equinox, yeah, and as soon as the autumn equinox hits, her powers change and she becomes an autumn witch. The other summer witches feel a little less strong. They're not as powerful. They're not as um, they're, they're not glowing like the witches of that particular season are. So every other witch spends 3 months being in their season and the other 9 months being a little subdued. But not Clara. She has powers throughout the season. However, her power is very, very volatile and has a body count, and I don't mean that in the dating way. And that makes Clara really, really afraid to truly harness and use her powers. But in a world with climate change, she is the only one who is probably strong enough to be able to handle the rising climate disasters that are happening. This book deals with a heat wave in the middle of winter, or like a storm in the middle of spring, autumn. And I think this book is set in America, and they're not supposed to have storms then. So it's about a journey about her coming into her own and trusting herself. And sometimes you need a reset to really break free of all the things that have been holding you back, and how you should, the answer has never been self isolation. It has a lot of these themes. However, I was annoyed because I live in a country with 5 seasons. I want to be a monsoon witch. I don't care how you figure it out. You divide the year up, you divide the 12 months into 5 equal sections. 365 is divisible by 5. So just figure it out. I want to be a monsoon witch. which is such a petty thing to be annoyed about, but I don't know, it just really got stuck in my head. This is a cool book. This is the author's debut novel. I have also read Wild is the Witch. I think I read it a couple of years ago. I definitely liked that book more than this one. I went on Goodreads to check if she's written any other books since then, and she has. And I would definitely be open to reading more books by Rachel Griffin, because, like I said, I have already read and enjoyed Wild is the Witch much more than I enjoyed The Nature of Witches. But I think that this book would be more suited to, I think it is a young adult book, and I think that this is one of those young adults book where it will hit the best for its audience. And I'm not saying that this was a bad book in any way. I'm just telling you why it did not work that well for me, while still pointing out the great parts that I liked. Okay, next up, I read Frankenstein. Frankenstein I had started at the beginning of the month, but I was taking my own sweet time. Initially, I really wanted to annotate and go like really in depth with this book and try to figure it out. But there's this thing that happens with me with classics sometimes, that I start to get annoyed if I try to read them too fast. And that kind of was happening with me. Like, I really enjoyed it. This is a classic. It's a classic for a reason. Mary Shelley invented a whole new genre just to win a bet. And she was pretty young at that time. She was 18. I am obsessed with what this book means, what its existence stands for, and all of that. I also really, really connected with a lot of those themes. Obviously, we've got that. And of course, we've got that most famous classic quote that I really, really love. Accursed creator, why did you form a monster so hideous that even you turned from me in disgust? God in pity made man beautiful and alluring after his own image, but my form is a filthy type of yours, more horrid even from the very resemblance. Satan had his companions, fellow devils, to admire and encourage him, but I am solitary and abhorred. And there's something about being chronically ill or chronically injured or in chronic pain all the time that makes you feel like a monster, that makes you want to go up to your creator and be like, dude, why did you create me like this? Why? And sometimes your creator is an actual omniscient, everything responsible figure, and sometimes your creator is a dude who dropped out of college, who was just hyper fixating on bringing things to life and wasn't really thinking. But I related more to this quote that's right on the next page, where the creature talks about these people. So at that point, the creature is observing people. He's learning how to speak, he's learning how to read, he's learning, like, basically how to exist as a person. Personhood being used very liberally by me here. But he's learning all of that, and he's observing these people, and they're not rich by any means, but they're still together and they're still happy. And then in contrast, he's looking at his own life, and he's saying that increase of knowledge only discovered to me more clearly what a wretched outcast I was. I cherished hope, it is true, but it vanished when I beheld my person reflected in water, or my shadow in the moonshine, even as that frail image and that inconstant shade. So he's like, but these people, they don't have much, but they have each other. But I am so ugly and so disgusting. I loathe when I look at my shadow, or even like look at my reflection, because the more that I realize things, the more that I learn, the more I realize that I'm always going to be alone. We're not gonna analyze why that slaps, why I relate to it, but I do. Anyway, so I finished this book. I really enjoyed this book, but I wanted to do an even more in-depth analysis of this book, but unfortunately I did not have the capacity to do that right now, and I was also rushing through it for one more reason, which seems a little silly now, but I'll come to that once I've gone through all the books that I'm talking about. The next book that I read, which was the final book that I read in October, was Carmilla. It's an it's another classic. This is said to be the OG vampire story, which was published 26 years before Dracula was published. This is a sapphic vampire story, and I support women's rights, but I support women's wrong. Okay. So this is Carmilla. This is about this girl, Laura, who lives in a castle with her father. And one day, this mysterious girl, Carmilla, comes to live with them. She is just passing through with her mother, but unfortunately, she's sick and they have some issues and she cannot travel further. So, Carmilla's mother leaves her in the care of Laura and her father for a few months. And then weird stuff starts happening. People start dying. Even Laura starts to hallucinate. She starts to experience some pain, a weird sensation. She has dreams where she sees Carmilla at the foot of her bed. What could it all mean? This was a really cool book. This was 156 pages, and although this was also a little bit like in the old archaic English style, but I had just read Frankenstein, so I was ready to go. I was not getting bored with this one. I really enjoyed it, and I think it was a cool book overall. There's not much to say. This is a classic. I think you should check it out if you're into vampire stories. If you have read Dracula, so now this is a little bit of another tangent. If you have read Dracula, that's cool. If you have not read Dracula but you are intimidated by it because it's a classic and reading classics intimidates you for whatever reason, there's this email service called Dracula Daily, which I signed up for, and that is how I read Dracula. Like, I did get a copy of Dracula, but I also read it through Dracula Daily. Basically, Dracula is an epistolary novel, so it's written either through letters or journal entries, all of which are dated. And if I remember correctly, it is set between May and December. So, what Dracula Daily does is that on the date of that particular letter or journal entry, they mail you that particular letter or journal entry, and then you can just check your mail and you can just read it. And that way, you're reading a little bit and you're not even reading every single day. And over the course of maybe 6 months, you've finished Dracula, a classic. And the best part about my reading experience was that I signed up for Dracula Daily right when it was taking off. I think it was the first year only, but I might just be wrong. And anyway, a lot of people had signed up, and every single day I would read my little letters from my friend Jonathan Harker, and then I would go on tumblr.com and look at all the memes that everyone was making and looking at all the posts and the analyses, and I just felt like I was in a book club with a lot of people, and I don't know anyone and they don't know me, but we all just get it. So it was a lot of fun. And I don't know if you'll get the entire tumblr.com experience, but I would definitely suggest looking into Dracula Daily if you want to read Dracula. Otherwise, you can power through it and then you can just pick up Carmilla afterwards. Okay. So now that I've talked about all the books that I've finished reading this month, so this right here is why I breezed through Frankenstein. I wanted to read Our Hideous Progeny as well this month. I started it, but I am not gonna be able to finish it. It is the 31st. It is like 10 p.m., I think. I don't have the energy. I tried to binge it. I started it this morning. I barely got like 80 pages in, but then I had chores, I had stuff, I had been chronically ill. I couldn't do it. It's okay. I was freaking out about this because I really, really wanted to read Our Hideous Progeny on Halloween. I couldn't. I'm still gonna finish this book, and I'll probably talk about it in my November wrap up video. But Our Hideous Progeny is a sort of spin-off of Frankenstein. It's by C.E. McGill. It's this book. It follows this woman named Mary. She's a paleontologist, and so is her husband. They're both like sciencey people. They run in the scientist circles and such. And then one day, Mary finds some old heirlooms, and among that, she finds the papers of Victor Frankenstein's research and how to bring things back. And I'm pretty sure she's going to try to reanimate something. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if it is like going to be sort of a retelling where similar events take place, if it's going to be something different. But it also has sapphic elements in it, which is really cool. And yeah, I'm excited for it. So this book also is set in the 19th century. I think it's set in 1854 or something. I wouldn't have been able to read this if I hadn't just read like Frankenstein and Carmilla just before this, because I tried to read Pandora, which is a book that is also set in the 18th or 19th century, but I wasn't able to really get into it. I paused it or like DNF'd it for the moment. Um, but I am able to read the archaic and oldish and, gonna be honest, a little annoying old timey language that this book is written in, because I just finished reading two such books. So I'm really, really excited to finish this, and I am so looking forward to making so many Ross Keller would have been interesting if blank jokes. Like, I'm probably gonna go something. This is so cringy. If you like Ross Keller, you can just skip ahead. I don't care. I hate that man with a burning passion. But Ross Keller would be so interesting if he was a woman. That's it. That's the joke. Because Mary Elizabeth Frankenstein is so cool. She's a paleontologist. And I think she's gonna be a necromancer too. So hold on, I got one more. Ross Keller would be so cool if he was a woman and a necromancer. I don't even know if these are funny to anyone other than me, but I just really hate the guy. I just really hate him. Okay, that was a bit of a tangent. Another book that I started but could not finish in October was Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. So this is my pick for the fourth week of reading 12 books in 12 weeks. And this is 600 pages long. I'm about 100 and something pages in. I think I can finish this. Tonight is Friday. So we've got Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I've got 4 days. I think I'm going to be able to finish this easily before I pick up my next book for next week. But these are the 2 week. These are the two books that I started, but I could not quite finish in October. And that has been my reading wrap up for this month. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you found something interesting in what I had to say. Thank you for sticking around. This is going to be a long ass video. This is 44 minutes this has been recording for, and even after editing, I think it's going to cross the 35 minute mark easily. So if you're still watching, I love you. I love you. Are you in love with me? What are we? Anyway, I can be a little dramatic today. Today's Halloween. I can be weird and goofy. I say that as if I'm not gonna be weird and goofy the other 364 days of the year, but you know what? A girl's got a vibe, and if her vibe is weird and goofy, it just is. I'm sorry. Weird little girls grow up into me. Without getting distracted by the concept of weird little me, I'm just gonna end this video. I was saying, yeah, thank you for watching, for sticking around, for staying this long, for hearing about all the things that I had to say. Please chime in if you have literally anything to say about any of it. I hope that I spoke about the books in a way that makes it easy for you to identify whether or not you're going to enjoy reading this. If you've read any of the same books and want to chat with me about them, I'm going to put my Instagram link in the description. And if I haven't, you can totally comment and tell me to. And you can reach out to me over there, or we can just have a conversation in the comments. I don't care. But Happy Halloween, happy reading. Tell me all the spooky books that you've read this year, this month, this year, whenever, yesterday, 2 years ago, I don't care. Tell me more about spooky books, and I'll see you in my next video.